You chose a foreign foundling over your husband. Now you will lose both your home and your name." Duke Nathaniel Ashcombe placed the separation agreement before Lydia and pushed a silver pen across the library table. Beyond the closed doors, 12-year-old Elias waited under armed guard. The document bore Nathaniel's seal and the signatures of 2 solicitors. It would remove Lydia from Ravensmere, suspend her household allowance, and force her to surrender all authority over the boy she had raised for 6 years. In return, she would receive a modest residence in Bath, provided she never challenged the accusation against him. Lydia did not touch the pen. "You have already decided he is guilty," she said. "I have his confession. You have a page bearing his name." Nathaniel's expression hardened. Once, that face had softened whenever she entered a room. Now it held the cold impatience he reserved for petitioners who had overstayed their welcome. "The missing dispatches were discovered beneath his mattress," he said. "He admitted taking them." "In English?" Nathaniel hesitated. "What difference does that make? Elias forms his capital E in the continental style. He always has." Lydia turned the confession toward him and placed one finger beneath the signature. "This was written by an English clerk." Nathaniel barely glanced down. "For 3 months, Lord Alistair Vane, Nathaniel's newly appointed political secretary, had warned him that Lydia's work for the Foreign Office made her vulnerable to foreign influence. Then 2 military dispatches disappeared from Nathaniel's study. Vane found them in Elias's room, along with a list of unfamiliar names. Nathaniel had accepted the evidence because it offered him something he desperately wanted: freedom from scandal before the government announced his appointment to the Privy Council. He could have questioned the servants. He could have allowed Lydia to translate the list. Instead, he had ordered Elias locked away before dawn. "The boy lied about his birthplace," Nathaniel said. "He entered this house under a false name. He was 6 years old when I found him. You found him among enemy refugees. I found him starving beneath an overturned cart. And you brought him into my family without knowing whose blood he carried." Lydia rose slowly. "You knew exactly what I was doing. You gave him that wooden falcon on his 7th birthday. A flicker of recognition crossed Nathaniel's eyes, but it vanished almost immediately. "That was before I understood the risk." "No, it was before ambition taught you to call affection a weakness." Nathaniel's hand closed around the back of a chair. "Sign the agreement. If I sign, what happens to Elias? He will be questioned in London. By whom? The men authorized to investigate him. That is not an answer. It is the only one you are entitled to receive." Lydia looked at the husband she had once trusted with every fragile part of herself. Nathaniel had not been deceived into this cruelty. Vane might have supplied the accusation, but Nathaniel had chosen secrecy, confinement, and public disgrace because they protected his advancement. She pushed the agreement back. "I will not sign away a child to make your appointment more convenient." The shot shattered the window. Lydia dropped as glass exploded across the carpet. The bullet struck the paneled wall inches above Nathaniel's head. He staggered backward while smoke drifted through the broken window. Guards burst into the library. Nathaniel pointed toward the gardens. "Find the gunman!" Boots thundered away. Lydia remained crouched beside the desk, where a torn scrap of paper had fallen among the glass. It had been wrapped around the bullet. Nathaniel reached for it, but she was closer. The message contained 7 words: "Send the boy to London, or the Duke dies first." The library doors flew open again. Elias stood between 2 guards, his dark hair disordered, and one cheek reddened where someone had struck him. He did not look at the broken window. He stared toward the garden, listening to the fading echo of a whistle. 3 notes, a pause, then 2 more. All color left his face. "I know that signal," he whispered. Lydia crossed the room before either guard could stop her. "From where?" "The cellar." "What cellar?" "The one across the border." Elias's breathing grew shallow. "The night my father died, 2 men waited below the house. One of them whistled that tune before they came upstairs." Nathaniel took the warning from Lydia's hand. "You expect me to believe a memory from a frightened 6-year-old? Elias turned toward him. "I heard the same man again last week." The room fell silent. "Where?" Lydia asked. "At Ravensmere." Elias pointed toward the corridor leading to the state apartments. He spoke behind the blue drawing-room door. I could not see him, but I knew his voice. Nathaniel's jaw tightened. "Whose voice?" Before Elias could answer, Lord Alistair Vane appeared in the doorway. He was immaculate despite the disturbance, his gray coat buttoned neatly and his gloves still in one hand. Behind him stood Sir Malcolm Rook, the former military envoy Nathaniel had welcomed to Ravensmere 10 days earlier. Elias stepped backward until he struck Lydia's shoulder. Then, so softly that only she could hear, he said, "That is the man who ordered my father killed." He was looking directly at Sir Malcolm. Nathaniel followed the boy's gaze. For one suspended moment, Lydia saw doubt enter her husband's face. Then Vane spoke. "Your Grace, the carriage is ready. If the boy leaves now, he can be delivered to London before midnight." Sir Malcolm rested one hand on the hilt of his sword and smiled at Elias. Lydia understood at last that the men outside the library were not guarding the child. They were waiting to take him. Lydia stepped between Elias and Sir Malcolm. "My son is not entering that carriage." "He is not your son," Nathaniel said. The words struck more deeply than she allowed him to see. Elias lowered his eyes, but his fingers closed around the wooden falcon protruding from his coat pocket. Vane approached Nathaniel with measured calm. The gunshot proves someone intends to silence the boy. London is the safest place for him. "Under whose authority?" Lydia asked. "The Home Secretary's." "Then show me his warrant." Vane's expression did not change. "Sensitive matters are not discussed with ladies. I translated dispatches for the Foreign Office while you were still copying invitations for your uncle." Sir Malcolm gave a quiet laugh. Nathaniel did not. "This is my house," the Duke said. "Elias will go." Lydia looked toward the broken window. The shot had come from the western garden, yet the guards stationed there had not raised an alarm before it was fired. Someone inside Ravensmere had cleared a path for the gunman. She turned to Elias. "Tell His Grace what you heard last week." The boy swallowed. "Sir Malcolm said the king's carriage would slow at St. Clement's Gate. Lord Vane said the eastern balcony offered a clear view." "That is absurd," Vane replied. "The child is inventing accusations to avoid questioning." "Where were you when you heard them?" Lydia asked. "Behind the blue drawing-room wall." Nathaniel frowned. "There is no passage behind that room." "There is," Lydia said. "The old servant's stair was sealed on the ground floor, but the upper landing still opens behind the tapestry." Nathaniel knew she was right. Lydia had supervised repairs throughout Ravensmere, while he spent most of the year in London. She understood the house better than any man currently issuing orders inside it. Vane shifted his attention toward Elias. "If the boy truly overheard us, let him repeat the entire conversation." "I did not understand all of it," Elias admitted. "They spoke in Valdarian." Sir Malcolm's smile disappeared. Lydia had spent years teaching Elias English, French, and the border dialect spoken by his mother. She had never taught him Valdarian. Few people in Britain even recognized it. "What did they say?" she asked. Elias answered in the foreign language. His accent was imperfect, but the meaning was unmistakable. "The second carriage must be delayed. The red case must remain with the dead man." Nathaniel stared at Sir Malcolm. The envoy recovered quickly. "A parlor trick. Lady Lydia could have taught him those words this morning." "Then translate them," Lydia said to Vane. Vane's face remained composed, but his silence betrayed him. He did not speak the language. Nathaniel moved toward the bell rope. Lydia thought he meant to summon loyal guards. Instead, he addressed the two men holding Elias. "Take the boy to the East Tower. No one enters without my permission." "Nathaniel, he will remain here until I verify the warrant." It was not justice. It was another imprisonment, chosen because Nathaniel feared admitting he had trusted the wrong men. Sir Malcolm's hand tightened around his sword. "The carriage has been prepared. It can wait," Nathaniel said. For the first time, open hostility passed between them. Vane intervened smoothly. "Of course. His Grace is merely being cautious." The guards led Elias away. As the boy passed Lydia, he stumbled against her and pressed the wooden falcon into her palm. "Do not let them take it," he whispered. Nathaniel ordered everyone from the library except Lydia. When the doors closed, he faced her across the shattered glass. "You will remain in your rooms. While Vane searches Elias's belongings and destroys whatever frightened him, you are accusing my secretary of treason. I am asking why a dying message was fired through your window minutes before men tried to remove the only witness. The shot may have been intended to frighten me. It succeeded." His face tightened. "Do not mistake caution for fear, and do not mistake obedience for innocence." Nathaniel looked toward the unsigned separation agreement. "If Elias is cleared, the terms can be reconsidered." Lydia felt something inside her become still, not repaired, not withdrawn, reconsidered. "You were willing to discard us both before asking a single question," she said. "Whatever happens next, I will remember that." She left him without permission. 2 footmen waited to escort her upstairs, but Lydia asked to retrieve a shawl from the morning room. Her rank made them hesitate long enough for her to enter alone. She locked the door and examined the wooden falcon. Nathaniel had carved it badly 6 years earlier. One wing sat slightly higher than the other, and Elias had refused every offer to replace it. Lydia ran her thumb along the uneven seam beneath the bird's breast. The panel moved. Inside lay a narrow strip of paper covered with 5 columns of symbols. At first they resembled children's marks, circles, crosses, and crooked branches. Then Lydia recognized them as phonetic signs Elias used when recording sounds he did not understand. He had written down the conversation. The first column listed names. The second contained dates. The third described carriage routes. In the fourth, one phrase appeared 3 times. The Ashcombe seal opens the gate. Nathaniel's ducal seal granted access to guarded government offices and allowed his couriers to pass military checkpoints. If Vane had been using it, the conspiracy extended far beyond Ravensmere. The final column contained only 2 words: Black Dispatch. Lydia heard a key enter the morning room lock. She folded the paper into her sleeve just as the door opened. Vane stood outside with Lady Serena Vale, the widowed daughter of a cabinet minister, and the woman society expected Nathaniel to marry, once Lydia had been removed from his life. Serena held a ring of household keys, Lydia's keys. "His Grace has transferred management of Ravensmere to me," Serena said. "You are to surrender anything belonging to the estate." Vane's gaze dropped to the wooden falcon in Lydia's hand. "That," he said quietly, "belongs to the boy." Behind them, from somewhere high in the east tower, Elias screamed. Lydia thrust the wooden falcon behind a cushion and ran. Vane caught her wrist before she reached the corridor. "The Duke ordered you to remain downstairs." "My son is screaming!" "He is not!" She struck him across the face. The blow stunned him long enough for her to break free. Lydia gathered her skirts and raced toward the east tower. Footmen flattened themselves against the walls as she passed, unwilling to restrain their duchess without a direct command. Another cry echoed down the stairwell. Nathaniel emerged from the library behind her. "Open the tower!" The guard at the iron door fumbled with his key. Lydia seized it from him and climbed the spiral steps 2 at a time. She found Elias on the floor of the upper chamber, holding his left arm. A clay cup lay shattered nearby. Beside him, a physician's assistant was packing instruments into a leather case. "What did you do to him?" Lydia demanded. "He resisted examination," the man said. A fresh puncture marked the inside of Elias's elbow. Lydia touched the spilled liquid on the floor, then smelled her fingertip. "Laudanum. You tried to drug him. Lord Vane authorized a sedative." Nathaniel reached the chamber. His gaze moved from Elias to the needle. "I gave no such permission." The assistant produced a folded order bearing the Ashcombe seal. Lydia took it before Nathaniel could. The seal appeared genuine, but the wax contained a faint black streak. She had seen that flaw before. The wax used in Nathaniel's private study was mixed with vermilion and melted to a clean red. This seal had been made from common household wax darkened with lampblack. "It is counterfeit," she said. Nathaniel examined it. "The impression is exact. Because someone had access to your signet." Vane and Serena entered together. Serena still carried Lydia's keys. Vane's cheek bore the red mark of her hand, but his voice remained calm. "The assistant misunderstood my instructions. I asked only that the boy be examined for injuries. You told him to silence Elias," Lydia said. "That accusation is beneath you. So was stealing my authority, yet you managed it." Elias pulled at Lydia's sleeve. His voice was weak but urgent. "The man who brought the drink asked where I put the black dispatch." Vane glanced at the boy. It was a brief movement, but Lydia saw recognition in it. Nathaniel ordered the assistant detained. 2 guards took the man downstairs, yet Lydia noticed Sir Malcolm was no longer with them. "He has gone," she said. "Who?" Nathaniel asked. "Sir Malcolm." Vane walked to the narrow window. "Perhaps he is helping search the grounds. Or perhaps he knows Elias identified him." Nathaniel turned toward his secretary. "Find Rook. Bring him to the library." Vane bowed and departed. Lydia almost laughed at the blindness of it. Nathaniel had just sent the suspected traitor's closest ally to warn him. She helped Elias to his feet. His weight sagged against her. "He needs rest," Nathaniel said. "He needs protection from the men you placed around him." A muscle moved in Nathaniel's jaw. "I will assign my personal guard." "The same guard who allowed a gunman into your garden?" He had no answer. Serena stepped forward. "Nathaniel, Lady Lydia is distressed. Allow me to take charge of the boy." Lydia turned on her. "You will not touch him." Serena's face sharpened. "You no longer govern Ravensmere. Then explain why you had my keys before Nathaniel finished asking me to sign the separation. Nathaniel looked at Serena. For the first time, she appeared uncertain. Lord Vane gave them to me, she said. He told me you had approved the transfer. I approved it this morning, Nathaniel replied. I received the keys last night. Silence filled the chamber. Vane had prepared Lydia's removal before the military dispatches were supposedly discovered beneath Elias's mattress. Nathaniel finally saw the contradiction, but Lydia no longer trusted him to act upon it. She guided Elias toward the stairs. We are leaving Ravensmere. You cannot take him, Nathaniel said. Then stop me. You have no legal guardianship beyond what my household permits. The cruelty of the truth made Elias flinch. Lydia had rescued and raised him, but no English law made him hers in the way her heart did. Nathaniel's name had secured the boy's place. Now Nathaniel was using that power to imprison him. Lydia faced her husband. If you keep him here after 2 attempts on his life, whatever happens will be your doing. Nathaniel's eyes moved toward the counterfeit order. Pride fought with doubt, and pride won. Neither of you leaves until I know the truth. Then I will find it without your permission. He ordered 2 guards to escort Lydia and Elias to her apartments. As they descended, Elias whispered, The paper from the Falcon names tomorrow. Lydia kept her face still. What happens tomorrow? The king travels past St. Clement's Gate. In her rooms, the guards locked the outer door. Lydia immediately crossed to the old fireplace and pressed a carved rose in the mantel. A narrow servant's passage opened behind the panel. She had discovered it years ago while supervising repairs. Nathaniel had never bothered to learn where it led. Lydia took a cloak, the wooden falcon, and the coated strip of paper. Then she led Elias into the darkness. They descended behind the walls until they reached the abandoned laundry court. A single horse stood harnessed to a small carriage. Beside it waited Mrs. Finch, Lydia's former governess and most trusted friend. You sent for me? The older woman asked. No, Lydia said. Mrs. Finch's face changed. Then who did? A whistle sounded beyond the courtyard wall. 3 notes, a pause, 2 more. The carriage door swung open by itself. Inside lay Sir Malcolm's blood-stained sword, and a royal dispatch bearing Nathaniel's seal. Lydia pulled Elias behind her while Mrs. Finch seized the carriage lantern. Do not touch the dispatch, Lydia warned. She examined the envelope without lifting it. Nathaniel's seal appeared authentic, but the blood on Sir Malcolm's sword was still wet. Someone had arranged both objects moments before their arrival. Who told you to bring the carriage? Lydia asked. A footman delivered a note bearing your signature. Which footman? I had never seen him before. Hoofbeats sounded beyond the courtyard. Lydia took the coated strip from her sleeve and handed it to Mrs. Finch. Hide this somewhere no one would connect to Ravensmere. Then go to Mr. Harcourt at the Foreign Office. Trust no message bearing Nathaniel's seal. What about you? I must keep Elias alive. The laundry door opened. Nathaniel entered with 4 guards, followed by Vane and Serena. His gaze fell upon the blood-stained sword. Where is Rook? I do not know, Lydia replied. This was waiting for us. Vane picked up the dispatch before she could stop him. It orders Lady Lydia to transport the boy to St. Clement's Gate. Convenient, she said. The precise location Elias heard Sir Malcolm discuss. Nathaniel read the document. The signature belongs to the Home Secretary. The seal on the drugging order appeared genuine too. Vane turned to the guards. Search her. Nathaniel did not object. A guard found nothing, because Mrs. Finch had already slipped through the rear gate with the coded record. Yet Nathaniel's silence wounded Lydia more than the search itself. Elias suddenly knelt beside the sword. This is not Sir Malcolm's blood. Everyone looked at him. How could you know that? Nathaniel demanded. Elias pointed to the dark liquid near the hilt. It smells sweet. Lydia touched a drop with her glove. The color was too bright and the texture too thick. Stage blood, she said. Animal blood mixed with syrup. The sword had been planted to make Sir Malcolm appear dead, or to frame Lydia for harming him. A pistol cracked from the courtyard wall. The carriage horse reared. One guard fell with a bullet in his shoulder, and the others scattered for cover. In the confusion, a masked rider burst through the open gate and reached down for Elias. Lydia caught the boy's coat and pulled him backward. The rider raised his pistol toward her. Nathaniel fired first. The masked man dropped from the saddle but rolled to his feet and fled through the laundry passage. Vane pursued him. Lydia noticed he ran without drawing his weapon. Nathaniel lowered his smoking pistol. Take Lydia and the boy inside. No, she said. We leave for London now. You nearly died. Because your traitors know every locked door in this house. A second group of riders entered the courtyard. Their leader wore the uniform of the Royal Horse Guards and carried an unbroken crown seal. "I am Captain James Mercer," he announced. "I have orders to escort Elias to Whitehall." Nathaniel demanded the warrant. Mercer handed it over, then looked directly at Lydia. "The boy was summoned as a protected witness 3 days ago. Our first courier never returned." Lydia saw Nathaniel understand. Vane had intercepted the original order before accusing Elias. Captain Mercer's next words stripped the last color from his face. "Your Grace, the missing courier was found dead this morning. He was carrying a travel permit signed with your private seal." Every guard in the courtyard turned toward Nathaniel. Captain Mercer examined Nathaniel's signet ring, then compared it with the seal on the dead courier's permit. "The impressions match. My seal was used without my knowledge," Nathaniel said. Mercer's expression remained formal. "Until that is proven, you must remain at Ravensmere." Nathaniel's political appointment had made him powerful. His careless use of that power had now made him a suspect. "I am traveling with my wife," he declared. "No," Lydia said, "you are not." His eyes met hers. "You cannot reach London safely without my protection. Your protection placed Elias in a tower, allowed him to be drugged, and nearly delivered him to his father's murderer." Nathaniel had no defense. Captain Mercer assigned 4 royal guards to Lydia and Elias. Before they departed, Lydia searched for Vane, but he had vanished during the attack. Serena had disappeared as well, along with Nathaniel's ring of household keys. The royal carriage left Ravensmere at dusk. Elias sat close to Lydia, exhausted but awake. "Will they believe me in London?" "They will hear you," she promised. "I will make certain of it." Several miles from the estate, the carriage stopped beside a deserted toll house. Lydia reached for the pistol Mercer had given her. A familiar figure emerged from the trees. Mrs. Finch. She carried Elias's coded paper in a small black case. "Mr. Harcourt never received me," she said after climbing inside. "His office was closed, and a clerk claimed he had gone abroad." "He was meant to oversee tomorrow's royal procession," Lydia replied. "That is not all." Mrs. Finch opened the case. "I found this beneath the false bottom of the courier's satchel. Inside lay a government dispatch bound in black leather." Elias recoiled. That is what they were searching for. The document contained the king's revised route through London. According to the official schedule, the royal carriage would avoid St. Clement's Gate, but a handwritten amendment ordered it back onto that road. The authorization bore Nathaniel's signature. Lydia studied the ink. Her husband had signed it, but the wording did not resemble anything he would have approved knowingly. The page described the alteration as a ceremonial security measure and concealed the actual route inside a column of administrative language. Vane had not forged Nathaniel's name. He had placed treason beneath it and relied upon Nathaniel's ambition to prevent him from reading carefully. A musket fired outside. The carriage lurched. One of the escort horses fell, and masked riders emerged from both sides of the road. Captain Mercer shouted for the coachman to drive. Lydia pulled Elias to the floor as bullets struck the carriage panels. Mrs. Finch covered him, while Lydia looked through the rear window. Among the attackers rode Sir Malcolm Rook, alive, uninjured, and carrying Nathaniel's ducal crest on his saddle. The road ahead narrowed at a stone bridge. 2 men were already waiting there with torches and barrels of powder. "They mean to stop us before London," Mercer called. "No," Lydia said, seeing the open field beside the road. "They want us to take the southern lane." Elias looked at the black dispatch. "Where does it lead?" Lydia traced the route in her mind. "To St. Clement's Gate." The ambush was not merely an attempt to kill them. Sir Malcolm intended to force the royal escort toward the assassination site, then use Elias and Nathaniel's sealed dispatch to make the Ashcombe family appear responsible. The coachman turned toward the southern lane. Lydia opened the carriage door and seized the reins. "Keep straight!" she shouted. Ahead, the powder barrels began to burn. The burning fuse raced toward the powder barrels. Lydia pulled the reins left. The carriage left the road, struck the shallow ditch, and tilted violently. Mrs. Finch held Elias against the floor, while Captain Mercer and his remaining men fired at Sir Malcolm's riders. The barrels exploded behind them. Stone fragments tore through the carriage roof. One wheel splintered, but the vehicle continued across the field before collapsing beside an abandoned chapel. "Out!" Mercer shouted. They ran inside as the attackers surrounded the building. Lydia spread the black dispatch across the altar. "They will kill us to recover this." Elias studied the handwritten route amendment. "This is not Sir Malcolm's writing. You recognize it? It is Lord Vane's. He bends his letter R like a hook." The observation connected the evidence. But it would not stop the assassination. They had to warn the royal household before morning. A shot broke the chapel window. Mercer found a narrow door behind the vestry leading into the burial yard. "I can hold them here while you reach the river." Lydia refused to abandon him until Elias pointed at the chapel bell rope. "The signal," he said. 3 notes, then 2. Lydia understood. Sir Malcolm's men used whistles to coordinate in darkness. If Elias reproduced the signal from another position, they might draw the attackers away. The boy climbed into the bell loft and struck the smallest bell 3 times, paused, then twice. Outside, Sir Malcolm shouted an order. Half his riders moved toward the northern wall. Mercer opened the rear door. Lydia, Elias, and Mrs. Finch escaped through the burial yard and reached a farm track leading toward the Thames. A coal barge carried them downstream under cover of darkness. At dawn, Parliament's towers emerged through the mist. Captain Mercer rejoined them near Westminster with 2 surviving guards. He had captured one attacker, but the man had swallowed poison before he could be questioned. They reached the Foreign Office shortly before 8. Mr. Harcourt was not abroad. He had been locked inside his own residence since the previous evening by men carrying Nathaniel's seal. He listened as Elias repeated the Valdarian conversation. "The red case," Harcourt said. "It contains the military orders carried in the king's second carriage." "What happens if it remains with a dead man?" Lydia asked. "The escort commander was changed yesterday. Colonel Avery now commands the second carriage." Elias gripped her hand. "I heard Sir Malcolm say Avery's name in the cellar." Harcourt ordered the procession halted, but a messenger returned with disastrous news. Revised instructions had already sent the king toward St. Clement's Gate. The procession was underway. Then the office door opened. Nathaniel entered under armed escort, his coat stained from travel. He had escaped neither custody nor consequence. He had persuaded Captain Mercer's superior to bring him as a witness by surrendering his title's immunity and admitting that he had signed the Root Amendment without reading it. He placed a ledger on the table. "I found payments from my political account to Vane, Rooke, and Colonel Avery," he said. "All authorized with signatures I failed to question." Lydia looked at him coldly. "And where is Vane?" Nathaniel's face tightened. "He left Ravensmere with Serena. They are already in London." A cannon sounded outside, announcing the king's approach. Elias moved to the window. Across the street, on the roof overlooking St. Clement's Gate, a man raised a rifle. Beside him stood Lord Vane. Lydia saw the rifle barrel settle toward the approaching royal carriage. "There is no time to reach the roof," Mercer said. "There is another way." She seized the black dispatch and ran downstairs with Elias, Nathaniel, and the guards behind her. Outside, crowds pressed against the barriers while soldiers cleared St. Clement's Gate. The church beside the gate displayed signal flags to guide the procession. Lydia recognized their naval meanings from documents she had translated. She pulled down the blue flag and raised the red and white warning for immediate danger. The lead cavalry officer saw it. He lifted his arm, and the royal carriage stopped before entering the gate. A rifle fired. The bullet struck a stone pillar where the king's carriage should have been. Mercer's guards rushed into the building. Vane fled across the roof, but the gunman was captured. Beneath his coat, they found payment notes bearing the Ashcombe crest. Nathaniel stared at them. "My name funded an attempt on the king." "Because you gave Vane control of your political account," Lydia said, "and refused to hear anyone who threatened your ambition." He lowered his eyes. Elias suddenly pointed toward the second carriage. The red case. Colonel Avery, its commander, was moving away from the procession with a red leather case chained to his wrist. When challenged, he drew his pistol. Nathaniel knocked the weapon aside before Avery could fire. Mercer's men arrested the colonel and opened the case. It did not contain military orders. Inside were letters naming several government officials who had accepted money from Sir Malcolm. There was also a list of foreign agents positioned across London. Elias recognized many of the names from the coded record hidden in his wooden falcon. Mr. Harcourt read the final page. This conspiracy began before the boy came to England. Elias's father had served as a translator during secret negotiations along the border. He discovered that Sir Malcolm and Vane were selling military routes to a foreign faction. They murdered him, but not before he hid copies of their names inside a children's primer. Elias had unknowingly carried those names in his memory for 6 years. The list found in his room, Lydia said. It was not a network of accomplices. It was a record of the men his father exposed. Harcourt nodded. Vane needed the boy discredited before those memories reached the crown. A guard arrived from the rooftop. Lord Vane escaped into the crowd. Another officer brought Serena forward. Her fine dress was torn, and Lydia's household keys hung from her belt. "I did not know they intended to kill the king," Serena said. "Vane told me he was exposing a foreign spy." "You accepted my keys before Nathaniel dismissed me," Lydia replied. Serena began to weep. "He promised your place would become mine." Nathaniel looked at her with disgust, but Lydia refused to let him pretend moral superiority. "You made that promise believable," she told him. "You gave her my authority while I was still your lawful wife. The king was taken to safety, yet the danger had not ended." Vane and Sir Malcolm remained free, and the letters in the red case could be dismissed as foreign fabrications unless supported by living witnesses and original financial records. Then Elias noticed a phrase written in tiny Valdarian script along the case's inner seam. Lydia translated it aloud. "Before Parliament sits, burn the archive beneath Ashcombe House." Nathaniel's London residence stood less than a mile away. Its cellar contained every original account, private letter, and sealed instruction from his political office. Black smoke was already rising above its roof. By the time they reached Ashcombe House, flames had consumed the western windows. Servants formed a line across the courtyard, passing buckets from the pump, but the fire had begun in the cellar and was spreading upward through the walls. Whoever started it understood the building well. "The archive is beneath the south wing," Nathaniel said. "And the fire began beneath the west," Lydia replied. "They want us to believe the records are already lost." She looked toward the smoke curling from the roof. The blaze was fierce, but strangely uneven. The south wing remained almost untouched. "It is a diversion." Captain Mercer ordered his men around the back. Lydia entered through the servants' passage with Nathaniel and Elias before anyone could stop her. Heat pressed against them. The hall was obscured by smoke, and plaster fell from the ceiling. Nathaniel covered Lydia's head with his coat as they crossed beneath a burning beam. She pushed it away. "Protect Elias." Nathaniel obeyed without argument. They reached the cellar stairs and found the archive door open. Most of the shelves were empty. The remaining account books had been soaked in lamp oil, but not yet ignited. Someone was still inside. Lydia heard a metallic click. Sir Malcolm stepped from behind a stone pillar with a pistol. His coat was torn from the ambush, and blood darkened one sleeve. "You should have let the Duke send the boy away," he said. "You should have learned that children remember the men who murder their fathers," Lydia replied. Sir Malcolm aimed at Elias. Nathaniel moved in front of the boy. "You used my seal," he said. "You gave us more than a seal. You gave us government access, money, and a reputation no clerk dared question." Sir Malcolm smiled bitterly. "All Vane had to do was praise your judgment and suggest your wife doubted it." Nathaniel absorbed the words without defending himself. "Where are the original ledgers?" Lydia asked. "On their way to Parliament. Vane intends to present them as proof that Ashcombe financed the conspiracy." The trap was now complete. Nathaniel's authentic signatures appeared on payments, travel permits, and the altered royal route. If Vane controlled the explanation, he could depict himself as the loyal secretary who discovered his master's treason. "And Serena?" Lydia asked. "A useful fool. Like your husband, she believed ambition made her clever." Sir Malcolm cocked the pistol. Elias began whistling. 3 notes. A pause. 2 more. Sir Malcolm's face changed. For a fraction of a second, his eyes moved toward the cellar door, expecting an ally. Lydia threw the nearest oil-soaked ledger at his weapon. The pistol fired into the ceiling. Nathaniel tackled Sir Malcolm before he could aim again. They crashed against the shelves, scattering books across the floor. Elias kicked the fallen pistol toward Lydia. Sir Malcolm drew a knife. Nathaniel caught his wrist, but the blade cut across his side. Lydia seized an iron candlestick and struck Sir Malcolm's hand. The knife fell. Mercer's guards rushed into the cellar and restrained him. Nathaniel leaned against the wall, blood spreading beneath his waistcoat. Lydia pressed a folded cloth to the wound. "Hold this firmly. I thought you wished me dead." "No," she said. "I wished you had been a better man." The distinction silenced him. While Mercer questioned Sir Malcolm, Lydia examined the abandoned shelves. Dust marked the places where the ledgers had stood, but one section showed narrow scratches leading toward the floor. She pressed it. The shelf opened inward. Behind it was a smaller record room containing letters, account copies, and Vane's original instructions to Sir Malcolm. Nathaniel's late father had built the compartment for private estate records. Nathaniel had never known it existed because he had left management of the London house first to Lydia and later to Vane. Lydia discovered the room because she remembered every alteration she had supervised. One document listed payments to the gunman at St. Clement's Gate. Another ordered Colonel Avery to place the red case in the royal carriage. A third instructed Vane's agents to kill the royal courier and use Nathaniel's permit to move the body. At the bottom of the final page appeared Vane's hooked letter R. Elias found a packet tied with faded blue ribbon. Inside were the reports written by his father 6 years earlier, describing Sir Malcolm's sale of military information and naming Vane as the intermediary. For the first time since Ravensmere, the boy began to cry. Lydia knelt beside him. "Your father did not abandon you. He was trying to protect you. He told me to remember the names," Elias whispered. "I thought they were prayers. They were his testimony." Captain Mercer placed Sir Malcolm in irons. Under threat of facing trial alone, the envoy admitted that Vane had taken the stolen ledgers to a parliamentary committee already assembled to investigate Nathaniel. "We must reach Westminster before he gives evidence," Mercer said. Nathaniel attempted to stand, but his injured leg failed beneath him. Lydia caught him. "Go without me," he said. "Take the hidden records." It was the first order he had given her that did not seek to control her. She placed the evidence into the black case. "Mercer will send a surgeon." Nathaniel caught her hand for only a moment. "Lydia, I believed Vane because he told me exactly what I wanted to hear. I signed what he placed before me. I chose the appointment over you, and when Elias needed protection, I treated him as an inconvenience." She withdrew her hand. "Say it before Parliament." "I will. And clear Elias's name before you ask anything for yourself." Nathaniel nodded. "I will ask nothing for myself." Outside, the fire had spread across the roof. Lydia, Elias, and Mercer entered a government carriage carrying the surviving evidence. As they approached Westminster, bells began ringing across London. A guard waiting at Parliament ran toward them. "You are too late," he said. "Lord Vane has already testified. The committee has ordered the Duke of Ashcombe arrested for treason." Lydia stepped down with the black case in her hand. "Then the committee has heard only half the truth." Behind the guard, the doors to Parliament opened. Serena stood at the top of the steps, holding a pistol against Mrs. Finch's back. "Put down the case," Serena called. People scattered across the steps. Guards reached for their weapons, but Serena pressed the pistol harder against Mrs. Finch. "Tell them to stand back." Lydia raised one hand. "Do as she says." Captain Mercer ordered his men to lower their pistols. Serena's face was pale beneath her veil. "Vane promised to protect me. Now he says I will hang unless I bring him the evidence. He abandoned you the moment you ceased to be useful. Be quiet. You stole my keys because you wanted my place. Did he ever promise you his?" Serena's hand began to shake. Mrs. Finch drove her heel onto Serena's foot and threw herself aside. The pistol discharged into the stone railing. Mercer seized Serena before she could fire again. Lydia did not pause. She took Elias and the black case into Parliament. The committee chamber was crowded with ministers, peers, military officers, and reporters. Vane stood at the witness table, presenting Nathaniel's stolen ledgers as evidence. He claimed the Duke had recruited a foreign child to transmit coded names, and that Lydia had used her translation work to conceal the scheme. When she entered, every voice fell silent. Vane recovered first. "Lady Lydia is herself under suspicion." "Then question me publicly," she said. The committee chairman demanded her evidence. Lydia began with the false confession. She demonstrated that Elias's signature used an English letter form he had never written. Next, she presented the counterfeit drugging order and explained the lampblack contaminating its wax. Then she opened the hidden archive. Each payment in Nathaniel's ledger matched an instruction written by Vane. Every travel permit corresponded with the movement of one of Sir Malcolm's agents. Elias's phonetic record preserved the Valdarian conversation planning the attack, while his father's reports proved the conspiracy had begun 6 years earlier. Vane laughed. A collection of papers conveniently discovered by the Duke's wife. Not merely papers. Captain Mercer brought Sir Malcolm into the chamber in irons. Faced with his own signed instructions, the captured gunman, and the original reports written by Elias's father, Sir Malcolm named Vane as the architect of the assassination plot. Vane turned toward the door. Royal guards blocked it. The chairman asked Elias to approach. The boy's hands trembled, but Lydia stood beside him as he repeated the voices, names, and phrases he had remembered since his father's murder. When he finished, Vane's composure finally broke. "He is a foreign stray," he snapped. "His word cannot outweigh an English gentleman's." "No," Lydia replied, "but your handwriting can." She placed the rude amendment beside Vane's instructions. The same hooked R appeared throughout both documents. The ink also matched the bottle confiscated from his Ravensmere office. The committee ordered Vane arrested. Nathaniel arrived on a stretcher before the chamber adjourned. A surgeon had bandaged his side, but he insisted on standing to give evidence. He did not blame Vane for deceiving him. "I gave Lord Vane access to my seal and accounts," Nathaniel said before the peers and reporters. "I signed documents I did not read because I valued advancement above duty. When my wife challenged the evidence, I silenced her. When Elias needed protection, I imprisoned him. Their suffering was not caused only by Vane's conspiracy. It was made possible by my vanity and my choices." He withdrew his candidacy for the Privy Council and surrendered control of his political accounts pending investigation. Then he faced Elias. "I accused an innocent child and denied the bond he had earned in my home. I cannot undo that injury. But I can state before Parliament that Elias protected the crown while I failed to protect him." Finally, he turned toward Lydia. "The separation agreement will be destroyed. Ravensmere's household authority, her personal income, and every property granted through her marriage settlement will be restored immediately. I will also petition for an independent legal trust, securing Elias's care under Lydia's sole direction." Murmurs moved through the chamber. Nathaniel looked at her, but made no request for forgiveness. The chairman formally cleared Lydia and Elias of every accusation. The reporters recorded the ruling, ensuring their vindication would be as public as their disgrace. Outside Parliament, crowds cheered the boy who had saved the king. Elias slipped his hand into Lydia's. "Are we going back to Ravensmere?" She looked toward Nathaniel, standing alone beneath the chamber's carved arch. "No," she said, "not yet." A royal secretary approached with a sealed offer from the crown. Lydia was invited to establish and lead a new bureau for diplomatic translation, and Elias would be educated under her protection. For the first time, her future did not depend upon her husband's name. She accepted the letter. Lord Alistair Vane and Sir Malcolm Rooke were tried before a special tribunal for treason, conspiracy, murder, and attempted regicide. The papers recovered from the hidden archive were matched against bank records, military permits, and the testimony of surviving couriers. Vane had designed the operation. Sir Malcolm had recruited the killers. Colonel Avery had altered the royal escort from within. None of them could explain away Elias's memory. The names he had carried since childhood matched the men who had received secret payments. The Valdarian phrases he recorded corresponded with instructions found in Vane's handwriting. His father's reports proved that the conspiracy had begun 6 years earlier, and that Sir Malcolm had ordered the translator's murder when he tried to warn the crown. Vane was convicted and stripped of his property. Sir Malcolm received the same sentence after confessing to the killing of Elias's father and the royal courier. Colonel Avery lost his rank, pension, and freedom. Lady Serena Vale escaped prosecution for treason by surrendering Vane's private correspondence. Those letters showed that she had known of the plan to remove Lydia from Ravensmere, seize her keys, and help fabricate evidence against Elias. Serena insisted she had never known about the assassination, but society cared little for the distinction. The drawing rooms she had hoped to rule closed their doors to her. Nathaniel was cleared of deliberately conspiring against the crown. He was not cleared of responsibility. Before Parliament, he withdrew his candidacy for the Privy Council and resigned every government position gained through Vane's influence. He acknowledged that the conspirators had succeeded because his seal, money, household, and reputation had been placed at their disposal. He sold Ashcombe House in London. Part of the money went to the murdered courier's widow and children. The rest compensated the guards wounded at Ravensmere and on the road to London. At the estate, Nathaniel dismissed the officials appointed by Vane and reinstated every servant punished for defending Lydia. He restored the village school she had funded and reopened the refugee clinic he had closed to avoid political criticism. These actions repaired some of the damage. They did not purchase forgiveness. Lydia remained in London with Elias and Mrs. Finch. The Crown appointed her director of a new diplomatic translation bureau, tasked with identifying forged dispatches and training interpreters for government service. She refused to establish it inside any ministry controlled by the men who had once dismissed her expertise. Instead, she chose an independent building near Westminster, with wide windows, a public reading room, and classrooms, where foreign-born scholars could work without concealing their origins. Above the entrance, she placed no Ashcombe crest. The only ornament in her office was Elias's wooden falcon. The boy's legal position required more effort. English law did not recognize Lydia's love for him as readily as it recognized Nathaniel's authority over his household. Nathaniel therefore placed a substantial sum into an independent trust for Elias's education and maintenance. The trustees answered to Lydia, not to him. He also signed a formal declaration acknowledging that Elias had been falsely accused, unlawfully confined, and endangered through orders issued beneath the ducal name. Nathaniel read that declaration before the Ravensmere tenants and servants, the same people who had witnessed Lydia's humiliation. "I called this child a threat, because believing him guilty was convenient," he said. "I denied the care he had shown this family, and the courage with which he protected the crown. The fault was mine." Elias stood beside Lydia as Nathaniel spoke. When the Duke finished, the boy did not embrace him. Nathaniel did not ask him to. 6 months passed before Lydia saw her husband again. On the morning her translation bureau officially opened, carriages crowded the street. Ministers, foreign envoys, journalists, and scholars filled the main hall. Elias, now dressed in a dark blue coat, demonstrated the phonetic recording system that had preserved the conspirators' conversation. The audience applauded him. Lydia watched pride replace the fear that had once lived in his face. For years, he had believed his accent made him foreign, and his memories made him dangerous. Now those same qualities had given murdered men a voice. After the ceremony, Lydia found Nathaniel waiting near the back of the empty hall. He wore no ceremonial sash. No secretary stood beside him. The scar left by Sir Malcolm's knife had stiffened his movements, but he did not use the injury to invite sympathy. "I was not certain you would come," Lydia said. "I was invited as one of the Bureau's private donors." She glanced at the published list of supporters. His contribution appeared beneath no title, only the initials N.A. "I did not want my name attached to what you built," he explained. "You have had enough of men placing their names above your work." It was the first gift he had offered without turning generosity into ownership. Nathaniel took the unsigned separation agreement from inside his coat. The document was creased where the bullet had shattered the library window months earlier. "I believed removing you would protect my future," he said. "When you challenged me, I did not investigate. I punished you for making me uncomfortable. I allowed Serena to carry your keys while you were still mistress of Ravensmere. I used the law, my title, and Elias's dependence upon my household to force your obedience." Lydia held his gaze. "And when you had the chance to choose differently?" "I chose myself." He did not mention Vane's manipulation. He did not hide behind political pressure or forged evidence. "I have done what justice required," Nathaniel continued. "But I understand that restitution is not courtship, and remorse is not a claim upon you." Months earlier, such words would have broken her heart. Now they simply confirmed what she had already learned. Nathaniel's change, if it endured, belonged to him. Her future belonged to her. "What do you want from me?" she asked. "Nothing you are not free to give." He placed the agreement on her desk. "Ravensmere remains your home if you ever choose to return. If you do not, your income and property will remain yours. I will not challenge where Elias lives or how you raise him, and I will not ask you to hide our separation to protect my reputation." Lydia touched the blank line where he had once demanded her signature. "You told me I would lose both my home and my name." "I remember. I discovered that a home held only by another person's permission is not truly a home." Nathaniel's face tightened, but he accepted the truth without protest. Lydia carried the agreement to the fireplace. The paper curled above the flame. The first sentence to blacken was the one declaring Elias excluded from the Ashcombe household. Then the provisions stripping Lydia of her income disappeared. Finally, the empty signature line caught fire. Nathaniel watched without reaching for the document. "This does not mean I am returning," she said. "I know. It does not mean the marriage is repaired. I know that too. She would remain legally his wife for the present, but she would live independently." She offered no promise of reconciliation. If Nathaniel wished to become a better man, he would have to do so without a guarantee that she would one day reward him for it. Elias appeared in the doorway, with the wooden falcon in his hands. "The first students are waiting," he said. Nathaniel looked at the boy. "May I ask you something?" Elias hesitated, then nodded. "The wing is still uneven. Would you like me to repair it?" The boy studied the badly carved bird Nathaniel had made years earlier. "No," he said. "It reminds me that something can be imperfect and still worth keeping." Nathaniel's eyes shone, but he did not presume the answer referred to him. Elias went to Lydia and placed his hand in hers. Together, they entered the classroom. Young translators rose from desks covered with maps, alphabets, and diplomatic codes. Some were refugees. Some were the children of merchants or soldiers. All possessed knowledge that powerful men had once considered suspicious. Lydia stood before them beneath no husband's portrait and no borrowed crest. Behind her, Nathaniel remained in the hall, separated from her not by a locked door or a cruel document, but by the distance his own choices had created. Ahead lay the institution she had built, the child she had protected, and a life governed by her own judgment. Months earlier, Nathaniel had pushed a silver pen toward her and commanded her to surrender everything. Now Lydia picked up a pen of her own. She opened the bureau's first official register and wrote Elias's true name at the top of the page. Then she began the lesson.